Welcome to the Past Lives Cafe. I am your host, Keone, an intuitive energy worker and acclaimed past life regressionist. Come with me as we journey through the spiral of time to forgotten places. Welcome to the Past Lives Cafe podcast. This is your host, Keone. I am very excited to introduce our guest for today. Her name is Carly Annalise Morrison. Carly is a professional tarot reader and Reiki grandmaster, author, and sacred cacao ceremonialist. She lives in Melbourne, Australia, and has had her own business, Psychic Dreaming, for 7 years. And she's currently rebranding this business to Carly Annalise Morrison. Welcome, Carly. I am so happy to have you here with me today, and I cannot wait to learn all about you and share that with our listeners and dive into your amazing experiences.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be speaking with you today.
I am intrigued by the name Psychic Dreaming as your business. Tell me about that.
Through my life, I've had a lot of dreams that have been premonitory. It seems like I dream these things and then life goes on a bit and then I'm living them and it's like déjà vu. And so because of that, I thought psychic dreaming would be a perfect name because I always dream a lot of things that actually come true.
And have they been primarily pretty routine type of dreams where you're remembering, oh, yeah, I remembered having seen this or dreamt this before? Or have you had anything that was a little bit scary or gave you pause?
Nothing scary. Generally, they're just like things that aren't really that special or momentous. But one particular dream that I had, I was in a apartment with two other men who were speaking a language I didn't understand. And I was in the next room and I woke up and I thought, me in a room with two dudes speaking a language I don't understand, as if that's ever going to happen. And I just cracked up laughing about it. And then I forgot about it. And a year later, I was in India in an apartment with my guru and one of his shishirs, and it was them. And they were speaking in the next room in Gujarati, which I didn't really understand Gujarati. But when it happened, I just cracked up laughing again. And my guru was like, "What are you laughing at?" And I had to tell him a year ago, I had a dream about this, and I woke up thinking me in a room with two dudes, I don't know, speaking a language I don't understand, like as if that's ever gonna happen.
And voila.
And it did. And it did, and I just laughed again. I found it so funny.
Well, I'm happy to hear that at least those dreams aren't significant in a negative way, because I do know some people who clearly have clairvoyant dreams that can be bothersome to them. And it's important to know what to do with that energy. You could look at being in a room with two dudes speaking another language as either a nightmare or a really good dream. And it sounds it's a really good dream.
Yeah, it was good. It was good.
You're a professional tarot reader, you're working with energy, a sacred cacao ceremonialist. Clearly, you have been involved in, I'll use the general term of the spiritual world and in touch with spiritual activity for quite a while. Tell me about your spiritual journey. Were you destined to be a cacao ceremonialist, or what was
I
your
think
progression?
I think I was. At 13, my mom had women coming around to the house who were reading tarot and doing psychometry and things like that. They'd do readings for me, and we went to the market one day and this woman did a reading for me, and I talked about this in my book because she said to me, I have the gift of intuition and throughout my life it would be a blessing and a curse, and it has been exactly that. That was like no true words have ever been spoken to me in my life, and I've never forgotten that. One of the ladies who my mom was friends with, who read the tarot one day, said to me, this is when I was only 13, she was like, I want you to read my tarot. And I was like, I can't do that. And she goes, yes, you can. And she said, I want you to think back to when you were a small child, when you read the book, but the book has no words. So you have to thread the story from each picture to picture. So I was very hesitant, but I reluctantly agreed to give it a go, and I did it exactly how she described to me, just using the pictures and just threading the story from each picture to each picture. And at the end, she was like, "That spot on."
And you were using your intuition,
Yeah,
obviously, to
yeah,
thread that
yeah,
story.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So it just continued from there, and I've just always used my intuition, except when I was 16, I started reading the books about the tarot, but that just threw me right off. So I had to stop with the books and throw them away, and I stopped reading for a little while, and then I started up a few months later and started just using my intuition again, because my intuition never been wrong.
It's always been spot on.
Mm.
But that's really interesting, Carly, because when you began reading and learning a structured format, that it took you out of the zone you needed to be in,
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. Yeah, it
where
just
you
threw
were
me.
having to memorize each tarot
Yeah,
card. And
it just didn't work.
so you are an intuitive tarot reader.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So you've always had these, and I never want to use the word gift because I believe that everyone has that ability to tap into their intuition. Do you agree?
yes, of course, I do, definitely.
I don't know about you, Carly, and when you're seeing clients, but I think a lot of times people kind of chalk off the intuitive talent or abilities they have, our goddess given talents and abilities, as being not that big of a deal. And yet they're relying on it without even really knowing it.
Yeah, that's so true. Exactly.
I think they're looking for seeing a dream of themselves in a room that is memorable to them, like you had, and then being able to come back and say, oh, I remember that. The difference is you had that ability as a child to know that that was important and meant something. And I
Yeah,
think that's
definitely.
amazing. You've had these abilities since you were a child. Sounds like your mom also did. Is it definitely something that was on the maternal lineage with your family?
Yeah, my grandmother used to actually read tea leaves as well. My mom taught me one thing my grandmother did. She said, if there's one loose bit of tea that's long, put it on your hand, but then stamp it with the other hand. And the amount of time you stamp it until it actually falls off that hand lets you know how many days till a visitor will come to your house. And my mum does that, and it's always right. It's amazing.
That's amazing. It reminds me of muscle testing type of
Yeah.
thing. Yeah, you're actually tapping into whatever that frequency is. Only this time, you know if someone's going to be late or not. A lot of your spiritual journey has been marked along the way with experiencing what you've now realized have been past lives. And I'm wondering if you could share a couple of those experiences. I'll hand it over to you and you share the amazing dreams that you have had.
One of them, I was actually a witch in France, and I was burnt at the stake. I've had it in a dream, but I've also had it in a vision just in meditation. But I had it confirmed to me by an amazing tarot reader that I saw years ago. And she said to me that I was a witch healer in France. And she said a lot of the gifts that I had back then, because she said I was a reader then and I was a healer as well. And she said a lot of the gifts that I had in that lifetime I've brought through and utilizing in this lifetime. And I've also done white magic since I was about 13 as well. I've been studying with High Priestess recently as well, so I've been really getting into my magic, which is something that's always been important to me as well. I love that.
Going back and touching base with what you feel was a long history of healing and white magic.
Yeah, for sure. But with India, I traveled to India years ago, but the first time that I traveled there, I couldn't bring myself to say I was going there for the first time. Like, I kept saying I'm going back there, and I'd never know why I would say that. Like, I'd have to stop myself because it was the first time I was going there in this lifetime, but I just kept saying I'm going back to India. It would just come out of my mouth naturally, like. And whilst I was in India, I had this experience. I was in the car with my guru, and a friend of his was driving, Rajpal, and he was driving. We are going to New Delhi. There was a guy meditating on the side of the street. He was a Jain. I don't know if you know what Jain is, but they only wear a cloth and they give all their possessions and they just meditate and people bring things to them. And so he was a Jain. And when they pulled over the car, I was overcome with love for him. And I got out of the car and I was hugging him before my guru and Rajpal even got out of the car. But they got out of the car and Guru was translating what he was saying. And he was actually saying, I was a peace lover from way back. And he remembered me. And Guru later told me that him and I had a past life and we were Jains. And that night I actually had a dream where I was a Jain meditating in some sort of a little tent thing or something. I don't know what. But yeah, and I thought that just confirmed it. But it was an incredible experience, and I'd hoped that we'd get to go back and see him again. It was not in my destiny, but I actually knew too that we wouldn't go see him again because Guru said was to go see him again tomorrow, but it didn't eventuate, and I knew it wasn't going to.
That is incredible. And you must have felt almost like you were hugging someone, like a family member that you hadn't seen in ages, but had been dying to see, but didn't realize it until you saw them. That's
Yeah.
amazing that he was so open to your approaching him. Did he hug you
Yeah.
back?
He was just hugging me right back, like it was so natural, and it was just unbelievable. It was amazing.
The witch memory that you had that was then later confirmed. We know that you have a healing interest or passion actually based on what you're doing, and you said you're tapping back into those more white magical portions of healing as well, in addition to the Reiki and the tarot reading and such. I'm wondering if you had any residual negative or fears, maybe, or negative thoughts from that time. Have you been scared around certain areas or scared of fire, as an example?
It's funny because I actually do a lot with fire. I perform Agnihotra as well, which is a Vedic healing fire ceremony. So it's very controlled and it's very safe. And I've done that in a place near Burke that was in drought and it actually brought rain. And Indigenous man saw me there a year later and he called me the rain bringer because he knew that the fires that I did actually brought the rain. So I'm not really scared of fire, but I'm aware that it can get out of control if it's not in a safe sort of way.
Right.
Like the agriculture, you have a special pyramid, so it's very safe and controlled.
That didn't translate into this life.
No, no. And also, when I did the sacred cacao
Mhm.
ceremonialist course, I also learned how to create despachos, which are beautiful offerings for Pachamama that you offer to the fire. So I've created a few dispatchos and offered them to the fire as offerings for Pachamama as well. And they're really beautiful too.
That sounds beautiful. How did you get into that practice?
It's funny because I was scrolling on Instagram and I saw Anchoring the Light Jamita, who's my teacher, who's wonderful. She's a blonde haired, blue eyed woman from Australia who spent a lot of time learning with the shamans in Quechua, like Master Puma is her teacher. Master Papa K was his father. So she is initiated into the lineage of the seven rays, which comes from the Quechuan shamans of the Andes, which I am now initiated into as well. And so my cacao ceremonies are in that lineage, and they're such a beautiful practice. I love it so much.
You are the third person that I have met within less than a year that has really embraced that cacao ceremony. But more than that, like you said, that entire lineage of just strong spiritual healing is the way that I have seen it unfold. And I feel like I'm hearing this more and more than I ever have before. Why is that?
I think it's because when I did the Sacred Cacao Ceremonialist course, my teacher Jamita was saying that the shamans say that at certain times the cacao starts to come out more and more because it's about opening the heart and coming back to the heart, which is what
Ah,
people need. And now is the time that people really need that. So that's why it's coming up more and more.
so meaning the energy of the world, maybe some of the strife that's happening, but also the level of consciousness as a whole could also be impacting it, becoming more prevalent. I love that. I love that because I'm thinking I'm just sitting here in the mid Atlantic of the United States and I'm hearing about cacao ceremonies. Like the word is getting out. I'm not super close to the Andes, right? I love
I'm
that.
not either here in Melbourne, and it was funny. I was in lockdown and I was on Zoom calls with the shamans in the Andes doing just bachos, and it was so wonderful and so beautiful. My experience of lockdown was pretty good.
I have an oracle deck that speaks to the seven rays of light and cacao, and that getting back in touch with the natural Mother Earth gifts that we all could recognize a little bit more, I think. Past life regressions is also big on the cycle of recognition. For a long time, it was something that was out there, a whole lot of psychic. I mean, they offered it, but I don't know a whole lot of people that actually said, I'm dying to know past life, but suddenly it's coming out of the woodwork. What's your experience?
I've had a past life regression, not a QHHT one, but a different one. It was regression, and I was told that I have karmic contracts with my mother and my brother, and I was told about the lifetimes with my mother and my brother, and they both sort of matched up to dreams that I had had as well. I thought I was a working girl from Texas with that kind of bodice and
Mm-hmm.
um the
Like in the
long,
old saloon days that
yeah,
the
exactly.
the working girls, yeah.
That's that sort of dress.
Right.
And I was told that I was a madam, and I had a saloon in there as well. And my mom came home and she'd been drinking, and she was one of my working girls, and she wanted my establishment, so she stabbed me in the back. She made a deal with me that she would save me if I gave her my establishment. So I did that. So that incurred the karmic contract. So yeah, I mean, I don't know all the details from my dream, but I dreamt of being in Texas like that. So I can imagine that it's probably true. But my brother, it was another lifetime, and we were, I guess, undesirables. We just robbed some sort of a stagecoach, and he apparently stole all the stuff from me and stabbed me to take it. So that was when karmic contract was incurred between me and him. But I haven't actually dreamt about that lifetime. They did a lot of clearing around those karmic contracts. So I guess there was a lot of healing that happened from that regression as well.
What made you seek out that regression?
I don't know that I did. It just came up in the session. It was really interesting to me.
You're the one that's getting quiet and then suddenly seeing these things in
Mm.
front of you and then recognizing that your mother was this other person and that your brother was this other person. And so your mind is able to make those connections. I think it's fascinating.
Our experiences too. In Australia, years ago, when you were on government benefits, they used to have a program called Work for the Dole. There was different programs you could do, and I was doing a musical program, creating music to play for people with disabilities. But at that time, I was dreaming about being like some sort of a geisha. I got stabbed by a samurai sword. I had this guy in my life in that work for the doll, and he told me that we were in this particular lifetime together.
So he had a geisha samurai image
Yeah,
that you
I
had
think
had.
I told him about the dream, and he said he was in my lifetime. He was quite spiritual. He did a lot of qigong and stuff, and he had a lot of visions of his past life, so he was really in tune and in touch with that. And he told me that he was in that lifetime with me, and I just believed it because I thought, yeah, that's probably true.
How many lifetimes do you think we have?
I wonder that all the time. I think we have so many. I'm actually predominantly clairaudient, so I've been hospitalized for hearing voices because psychiatry doesn't account for the spiritual world. So,
You've got that right.
sadly, it's landed me branded as schizophrenic, but I understand what it is, and I know it's not hearing voices to do anything to anyone. There's of people that are actually alive and around the world, but I don't know where or what. Sometimes it just clicks into full on overdrive with me. But one time I was in hospital and I was sitting at the breakfast table across from this young man. And every time I looked up from having a bite of my cereal, I would look at him, and every now and then I would have a vision and see a yarmulke on his head. Eventually it just got too much for me and I got too curious. And so I said to him, I'm sorry if this sounds really crazy, but I have to tell you this. Every now and then when I look at you, I just keep having a vision and I can see a yarmulke on your head. And he said, oh, I had a past life regression. And they told him that he was a Jewish priest in a past life.
Oh my
So,
gosh.
well, that explains it then.
I was doing some research on this. I read that the prevalence of hearing voices that are perceived to be in our heads, but we think we're hearing them, at least in the United States, I think at the time that I read this statistic from the NIH was around 25% of the population. It was big. People would discern however they came to discern the same way you have, whether it was something that they were imaginating or whether there was something actually spiritual happening or someone was actually talking to them or it was some sort of disturbance. So there was a process that people would go through to figure out the origin of where these voices came from. And to your point, what are they telling me to do? Because if they're telling you to hurt someone, then that's a problem. So Those voices
I've
get
never
packaged.
experienced voices like that.
Right.
Even though I'm branded schizophrenic, it's never been like that. I hear voices like I can hear yours now when you speak to me. And I
It's
can hear
that clear.
different people. It's not a voice in my head telling me to do anything to anyone. It's just like overhearing someone's conversation or listening to someone speak to you.
I know exactly what you mean. I have a twin sister. She makes it a point to tell everybody that I'm much older than her, 5 minutes. I liked being the older sister by 5 minutes up until we hit 40, and then it wasn't cool anymore. When she and I were, I'm thinking maybe 4, 5 years old, we used to share a bedroom in a home that was probably at the time, probably at least 250 years old. My family was renting this home, and the owners had kept it up really well. It was very well maintained, but they didn't change a lot of the original woodwork or the structure of the home. My sister and I would hear people talking all the time in that home. We just kind of accepted it. One of the chores that my sister and I had when we were young was one of us had to wash the dishes, and the other one had to dry them and put them away. We were getting to bed later that evening, and we hear sounds almost like that clinking that you hear when people are putting glasses away after they've washed and dried them or putting plates away. And my sister looks at me from her bed. She's like, they redid all the dishes we just washed. We can't believe it. I could have been watching cartoons. They're rewashing all these dishes. So we mentioned something to my mom the next day about why'd you guys rewash all of those dishes? And she said, we've never rewashed those dishes. My sister and I were very clear about hearing people in the kitchen talking and laughing. And my mom said, absolutely not. It had been a quiet night. No one had come over. It was just maybe a reverberation, maybe picking up on spirit from the past. And my mom kind of knew then that my sister and I were able to clairaudiently pick up on energy. And thank goodness she did not throw us into an institution at that time. But I know that a lot of people do get freaked out by that. I know exactly what you mean about hearing it outside your head as if someone's in the other room talking to you.
Yeah, yeah. When I was hospitalized the first time, a year later, I had my first astrology reading from this brilliant man I was over in Perth actually. And he picked it up in the first 5 minutes of meeting him and he said, a year ago, did you think that you could hear people talking and if someone lied to you, you could tell? Yeah, that's exactly what happened to me. And he said, I had 4 planets in Pisces in my chart and they all kicked into activation. So I was just getting everything from everywhere.
That's amazing. I'm sorry to hear about those experiences that you had in the not so perfect psychiatric system.
I think that's why she said to me my gift would be a curse at times, because that's been something that's been ongoing in my life. Like it's something that just my clairaudience just can kick into overdrive and it's just out of control and I can't switch it off. It's just part of who I am. I accept it and bless it.
Wonderful. We all come to whatever it is, accepting all the facets of us,
Yeah.
perceived good, bad, or indifferent, right?
Yeah, exactly. The shamans believe that there's only two types of energy. There's hucha, which is heavy energy, but even heavy energy doesn't want to stay as heavy energy. It wants to be transformed to Sami, and Sami is the pure light energy.
Oh, I love that. Do you see it as one of your abilities to be able to transmute that energy?
Definitely. Yeah, I'm
That's
working with
wonderful.
that. Yeah.
So, why do you think so many people around us today are interested in having either official past life regressions or trying to tap into their past lives themselves.
I think maybe they feel threads of past lives that are happening in our lives right now. And that's a reason why people are drawn to that. Because I feel like that's the reason I was drawn to that. And I think that's probably the main reason for it. Because I feel like we go through cycles in life where we're coming into contact with the same sorts of people, but then it changes when you're coming into contact with another lot of same sort of people. And that's a part of the cycles of life that we go through.
I love that. I don't know about you, Carly, but it sounds like you've been a number of places, whether you moved or you've just visited. You tend to run into some of the same personalities, and they remind you of someone who reminded you of someone. And then you start picking up on that thread. I love that. That is a really good point. And we're more mobile now than ever. And technology, heck, you're in Melbourne and I'm sitting here in Delaware. The chances of us being able to meet people from all over the planet is better now than ever. I had a client who was very concerned about flooding, too much water. They were so nervous, they would not use their dishwasher
Wow.
or their washing machine without feeling like that they had to constantly check it and then they would unplug it when they were finished. It was just this intense fear of flood. That was how it tended to manifest. One of the things that this individual had said to me was that they believed maybe they had been impacted by flood in another life because they didn't have any other way to explain this seemingly unexplained phobia. So, to the point where it was impacting how they lived their regular lives. They had asked me to do a regression with them. And I wondered if you had ever experienced that or heard any of your clients also wonder because of some unknown phobia or fear or attraction.
Well, I think I experienced that in some way myself. My cousin's been on a cruise. I just couldn't go on a cruise. The thought of being on a big boat in the middle of the ocean just scares the crap out of me. Love flying and I love playing. I've been on boat. I've been on catamarans. I've been on houseboat. I just couldn't go on a cruise ship. So I think in one past life, maybe I was on the Titanic or something.
I
Who
was
knows?
just thinking that.
I was probably on some big cruise liner that sunk in the middle of the ocean because the thought of going on a cruise ship for me is just like, no way, hell no.
It
And I've
seems,
never been on one,
oh,
but
you've never been on one at all.
I've never been on one. But the thought of going on one just turns me right off. I
You,
grew up on the Gold Coast, and I used to go on houseboats with my family, and my dad
mm-hmm.
used to catamaran. I've been around water and I used to surf growing up and I used to love swimming in the ocean and I've never really been scared of it. But the thought of a cruise, no, I couldn't do it. I just
That's the interesting part, right? Because you're not scared of water. You're not scared to get on a boat. It's the actual cruise lines that, for whatever reason, the size and being out in the middle of the ocean that freaks you out. That
and
definitely sounds like there's a thread there.
I think that's a past life thing for sure.
If someone wants to tap into a past life on their own, what do you recommend? Should they meditate, get quiet? Because you mentioned having seen scenes before.
Definitely meditation,
Guided meditation?
even better. But just meditation, getting into a deep state of meditation can definitely bring on the visions I've found in the past. That's how I've had my visions, is just through being in deep states of meditation.
Yeah,
Doesn't
getting quiet enough.
depends on your level of experience with meditation.
As a QHHT practitioner, I have had people successfully regress. Sometimes hate to use the term regress. In many cases, I've had people go forward where they are outside of the planet and in a cosmic type of environment as light bodies. So, whether that's future, past, I don't know, before the beginning of time, I'm not sure. Regardless, I've had witnessed those experiences with people who were just slightly, almost as if they had just lie down on a bed and just closed their eyes. And that was all the relaxed they were. And they were able to connect. And then I've had those that have been super deep, almost to the point of inaudible, where it was really difficult to tease them out of that depth in order to get them to even communicate with me. So I like the idea of just having someone, whatever that means to them, being able to get still enough
Mm.
to tap into that. And I think setting the intention, I intend to dig into why I'm scared to death of ocean liners, as an example.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah. Yeah, definitely setting an intention would be a helpful thing, I'd imagine.
I'm interested to hear if you dig into this, Carly. I would love to understand whether maybe you were Molly Brown.
Possibly, I don't know.
She survived, but still, that was scary. Do you believe that past lives have been really lived in the way that you and I are experiencing life right now, communicating with
Oh,
each other?
I believe that the lifetimes that we have lived previously, for sure.
So,
Yeah,
actually, physically have been there in some sort of physical.
capacity.
How about I've had a few people be against potentially being another gender, which I thought was really interesting. And it's usually men who feel like they may have been a female in a past life, but that really turns them off. And they really don't want to pursue that, whether it's a dream or a memory that they're having. And I don't know about you, Carly, but I've really deep down feel that our souls are genderless, or maybe genderful. Maybe we're all genders. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I think definitely I've had lifetimes where I've been male before. I had another experience where in a dream I was in a U-boat submarine,
Mm.
but I went down, but there was an explosion and my leg was blown off from my knee, so I died. But when I was dead, when I just died, it's like I was existing in everything, and I knew that there was other men in the submarine upstairs that wanted to actually save me, and they were in panic mode because they knew they couldn't save me, but they wanted to save me.
That
Yeah,
had to be terrifying.
it was terrifying, but it was actually amazing because when the experience when you just die, I felt like existing in everything. So I knew everything that was going on everywhere. It's like you become one with everything. And that's an incredible feeling. REM song where it says something about how he only feels good when he dreams of dying.
I've had that feeling one time and I wanted to hold on to it. I have to believe that this is what Eckhart Tolle and the Buddha were talking about when they reach nirvana, that feeling of being so connected.
Oneness with everything and
Yep.
everyone.
Of all of the experiences that we've talked about, and you've had so many amazing experiences, and I'm so thankful for your graciousness in sharing them with me. Which one do you think was the most fascinating? Or do you have another one in your back pocket to share?
I have an astrologer who I get some readings from, and she sometimes taps into my past lives. She's told me that I think this is why I have that great connection with the Andes because I think I must have been in the Andes in a past life because she says I was like some sort of shaman or something, but I got really frustrated with people turning to materialism. I feel like it's somewhere I've been before. And I mean, I've had dreams. I had a dream one night where I was going up a mountain with a shaman, but there was some goat falling off the mountain. And I had all these suitcases and I'm just pulling them up, but I got to the top of the mountain with the shaman and he was saying I just passed some initiation. It was an amazing dream. It was weird because it was scary that the goats were falling off, but I felt safe the whole time and I wasn't in any danger and I didn't fall off. I just felt really happy that I made it to the top and so it was a really wonderful dream, but it was like an initiation of sorts.
Like you defied gravity with your faith and persistence. You continued on your path, weren't deterred in any way.
It was an incredible dream.
I'm wondering if you've witnessed for yourself or during your cacao ceremonies or any of these other experiences, have you witnessed healing in some capacity, whether it's maybe spiritual, mental healing, or have you witnessed any physical impact?
I've witnessed something amazing from one of my cacao ceremonies. I did a cacao ceremony with someone who I won't name the person. They were actually in search of somewhere to live at the time, like to buy a place. When we do the cacao ceremony in the lineage from the seven rays, we're actually calling in the quarters. So all the apus, which is the mountains, the elements, and the animal allies from the east, south, west, and north and then Pachamama, Great Mother Earth, then Tati Inti, Father Sun, Mama Kia, Grandmother Moon, and the Wukamai, which is the Milky Way, and then the ancestors of the land you're upon, and the ancestors of the blood and star family, the ascended masters, high priestesses of light, wisdom keepers, angelic beings, and the Hunabku, or the grand central sun, which is like God's source. But with each call, you're actually sipping your cacao. So it's like a prayer. You breathe in and you blow the prayer onto your cacao, take a sip and say thank you. But then there's three prayers. One is for yourself, but they say in the spirit of irony or reciprocity, what you call in for yourself, you're also calling in for all beings. So invite you to be generous with your prayer, the prayer for yourself, and then the prayer for someone you love. And the final prayer is my favorite. My teacher calls it the insurance policy. Prayer for the forgotten ones. It's for all the prayers that are in your heart that your mind may have forgotten and for all beings on the planet. You know, when Indians dance for the rain dance, they're dancing believing that the rain is already coming. So this is the way that you pray with cacao. So when you say those prayers, you're saying them knowing that they're already been answered. But I had this particular person I did a cacao ceremony who wanted to buy a place and she hadn't even looked for somewhere to buy. And it wasn't long after that someone came knocking on her door and asked her did they want to buy their house, and it was literally in the same street.
That is manifestation on steroids. That is amazing.
And her brother was giving her a hard time because you never even looked for a place and they came knock.
So, did she buy it?
Yeah,
That's
bought it.
wonderful. Great
Really.
story. In wrapping up, I think that is such a gifted psychic dreamer and diviner that you are. I'm sure people would love to know how to get in touch with you for whether it's tarot, for whether it's energy work, throwing crystals on your charm board. How would you recommend that they reach you?
Psychic Dreaming on Instagram or Threads. My Facebook is actually Rudra Channel. Rudra is the name that my guru gave me, Rudra. Rudra Channel on Facebook or Psychic Dreaming on Instagram or Thread.
Perfect. I will also make sure that this is in the show notes. I honor you and I thank you for doing this with me, Carly.
Thank you so much. It's been an honor to be a guest on your podcast as well. It's been a pleasure meeting with you.
This concludes this episode of Past Lives Cafe podcast with Carly Annalise Morrison. If you or someone you know would like to discuss your past lives experience on the podcast, please reach out to me at keone@quantumjourneygo.com. Finally, please check out the Mystical Mermaid Lounge podcast, a safe space for all spiritual seekers, which I co-host with Chloe Brown. And remember, while we can't relive the past, together we can heal it. Thank you so much for listening. If you are interested in my services, visit me at www.quantumjourneygo.com or drop me a note at pastlivescafe.buzzsprout.com. Stay well and be present.